Everything in war is very simple, but the simplest thing is difficult.
That's Karl von Clausewitz, of course. And that quote, it just perfectly nails the challenge for any leader in a large organization, doesn't it?
It really does. On paper, command seems so straightforward. You just, tell people what to do and they do it.
Right, but that gap between intent and action, between the plan and what actually happens on the ground, it's a huge chasm, and it's filled with chaos, uncertainty, and what he famously called friction.
And that friction, it's not just one big problem, right? It's all the little things. The tiny obstacles that make even the most basic task feel almost impossible.
Exactly. And that's why organizational leadership can never just be a checklist. It's not an algorithm you can run.
So today, that's what we're doing. We're taking a deep dive into the nature of command and control itself. We want to dissect that balance between, say, the analytical, almost mechanical science of planning.
And the intangible, very human art of leadership that's required to actually turn a strategy into reality on the ground.
Our mission today is to really get to the heart of how large organizations can overcome that chaos.
And to do that, we've pulled together some core United States Army doctrine. We're looking at publications that cover the operations process, mission command, Army leadership, and of course the foundational field manuals on operations.
And to make sure this isn't just theory, we're going to anchor all of these concepts in a really powerful historical account. We'll be looking closely at General Matthew Ridgway and his legendary takeover of command during the Korean War.
A perfect case study. All of this doctrine really centers on a single philosophy the Army calls mission command. It's a leadership approach that is built for chaos because it emphasizes decentralized execution.
Meaning you let people on the ground make the calls.
You have to, because that's the only way to keep up. But, and this is the key, that only works if the whole organization has the right framework, the right trust, and a truly shared understanding already in place. And that, well, that's the real trick.
Okay, so to really get mission command, we first have to understand the environment it was designed for. You said it was built for chaos.
Right. And that's because, as the Doctrine in Field Manual 3.0 makes really clear, military operations are, at their core, human endeavors.
That's a point that feels like it gets lost sometimes, especially when we talk about high-tech warfare.
It does. We're not dealing with predictable machines or simple inputs and outputs. War is a contest of wills. It's defined by violence, by fear, and by constant adaptation from everyone involved.
So when you try to impose your will on an enemy,
They're actively trying to impose their will on you. It's not a static puzzle. The opponent is learning, adapting, and changing their approach in real time.
which makes just predicting the next move almost impossible.
Almost. And what's more, the doctrine on the operations process points out that the ultimate goal is always to change human behavior. You're trying to make an enemy surrender or convince a population to support you.
That human element just injects a huge amount of uncertainty into everything.
Profound uncertainty. And then layered on top of all that is friction. We talked about it, but what is it, really?
In a practical sense, yeah.
Friction is just the endless accumulation of tiny obstacles. Imagine trying to get a big group of people to move through a forest at night in the rain. A simple task, right? Walk from A to B.
Suddenly becomes a nightmare.
A total nightmare. A radio battery dies, an order gets misunderstood over the noise, someone trips, equipment jams, the weather gets worse. It's that constant drag on every single action you try to take.
And that's friction. But you also have chance.
Yes, and chance is different. Chance is for the things you truly cannot control or predict. A flash flood, a sudden political shift that changes everything, a critical piece of equipment failing for no reason.
So because you can't get rid of friction and you can't predict chance.
A rigid, top-down command structure just breaks. It's too slow, it's too brittle. The whole system has to be designed to be resilient, to handle chaos.
Which brings us back to mission command. So let's unpack it. What are the human elements that make this decentralized system actually work?
Okay, so Mission Command has 7 principles, but for this decentralized action to really function, it rests on 3 critical human cornerstones. The first one is simple: competence.
That seems obvious, but what kind of competence are we talking about? Is it just being good at your job?
It's a bit deeper than that. The Army leadership doctrine really emphasizes this. Subordinates have to believe their leaders are competent. They expect organizational leaders to be technically proficient in their field, and they expect their direct, on-the-ground leaders to be absolute technical experts.
Because if they don't believe you know what you're doing,
Trust is gone instantly. Competence is the bedrock of credibility. You have to have that.
Okay, so once you have that credibility from confidence, you can start building the second cornerstone, which is mutual trust.
That's it. And trust is not something that comes with rank. It's a shared confidence, and it's built over a long time. It comes from shared experiences, from training together, from getting through tough times together.
And from seeing everyone uphold the same values.
Absolutely. When a commander trusts their subordinates, they give them the freedom to make decisions. And when subordinates trust their commander, they know they'll be supported, even if they take a calculated risk, as long as it's aligned with the overall purpose.
And without that trust, you just get micromanagement.
Which is the death of speed. It kills tempo. And that brings us to the third piece, which is just as crucial, shared understanding.
This sounds like the glue that holds the competence and the trust together across the whole organization.
It's the cognitive glue, that's a perfect way to put it, and it's built actively. It comes from constant dialogue, from collaboration, from commanders and staffs working together to frame the problems.
So everyone is on the same page about the current situation and, more importantly, the why behind the mission.
The why is everything. Shared understanding is the only way you get unity of effort, especially when units are being moved around on the fly or, when communications get jammed by the enemy.
So competence gives you the skill, trust gives you the confidence to act, and shared understanding gives you the map for when things go wrong.
And right at the center of that map is the commander's intent.
This is maybe the most important concept in all mission command.
I think it is. The doctrine is very specific. It's a clear, concise expression of two things: the purpose of the operation and the desired military end state.
What you want the world to look like when you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the commander has to prepare it personally. And this is key. Whenever possible, they have to deliver it face to face.
Why is that so important? Why not just put it in the plan?
Because intent isn't just a task. It has to be understood on an intuitive, almost emotional level. It's designed to be short, maybe 3 to 5 sentences, so you can remember it under pressure.
So when the plan falls apart and the radio's dead.
You don't reach for the 100-page document. You remember the intent. My purpose is this, and the end state is that. That single thought gives you the focus you need to act, to coordinate, and to make decisions without new orders.
And that permission to act, that's what we call disciplined initiative.
Yes. It's action you take when you have no orders or your orders no longer make sense. But, and this is the discipline part, it's always within the scope of the commander's intent.
It's not just doing whatever you want.
No, absolutely not. It's a calculated risk. You are deviating from the written plan, but you're doing it to seize an opportunity that serves the overall purpose.
But how do you stop the whole thing from just falling apart? If everyone is taking their own initiative, couldn't it all just become chaos?
That is the essential tension. And the answer lies in the quality of the commander's intent and the depth of that shared understanding. If the intent is vague, the whole effort fragments.
But if it's crystal clear,
then all those decentralized decisions, even if they're different from the original plan, are still pushing the force toward the same goal. It's a system that absolutely requires trust, but also rigorous training and intense clarity from leadership.
And the tool that carries this whole philosophy is the mission order.
Right. And mission orders are fundamentally different from those old-school, rigid, step-by-step plans. They focus on the essentials: who, what, when, where, and that all-important why, the purpose.
By not spelling everything out, you give people the freedom to think.
You give them maximum freedom of action. You avoid that trap of creating these hyper-detailed plans that just stifle any kind of initiative. The plan becomes obsolete the moment the fighting starts. You have to be able to adapt instantly.
Okay, so we've set the stage. We have the chaotic environment and the leadership climate mission command that you need to operate in it. Let's pivot now to the more conceptual side of things. If that's the climate, what's the actual thought process?
Now we get into what the doctrine calls operational art. This is where the true art of command really shows itself, especially when you're talking about large-scale operations.
This isn't just tactical maneuvering anymore.
No, this is the cognitive approach commanders use to develop entire strategies and campaigns. It's that blend of skill, experience, knowledge, and, frankly, creativity and judgment that lets them connect the dots.
The dots being the ends, ways, and means.
Exactly. The ends are the strategic objectives, what the nation wants to achieve. The ways are the military concepts for how to get there. And the means are the resources you have to do it with. Operational art is the bridge that connects all three.
So it's the strategic choreography that turns a political goal into a military plan.
That's a great way to put it. And the heart of this art form is something called the commander's visualization.
What does that actually look like inside a commander's head?
It's a process. First, they have to build a deep situational understanding. What is the enemy actually doing? What does the terrain look like? What are the political and social factors at play?
So that's the now.
That's the now.
No.
Then they have to visualize the after, the desired end state. What are the conditions we need to create for success? And once they have the now and the after, they can create the operational approach.
Which is the big idea, the story that connects today to that future success.
Right. It's the broad description of the mission, the main concepts, the key tasks. It's the narrative of the entire operation.
It's like painting a picture of success before you've even picked up the brush. And to paint that picture, you need to understand some key elements. Let's start with the center of gravity.
Or COG. Analyzing the center of gravity is absolutely critical because it forces commanders to think beyond just fighting enemy units on a map.
It's asking a different question.
It's asking, what is the enemy's primary source of power? What gives them their strength and will to resist? And it's not always obvious. It might be their logistics network, it might be the political will of their leader, or maybe it's one specific elite military unit.
So you identify their source of strength and your own, and then figure out how to attack theirs while protecting yours.
That's the goal. But you usually can't attack a center of gravity directly.
So how do you get at it?
You attack what we call decisive points.
The pillars holding it up.
Exactly. Decisive points are specific places or key events or even people that, if you can seize or control them, you critically weaken the enemy's center of gravity.
Okay, so let's say the enemy's COG key is their command and control network.
Right. You can't just destroy the whole network. But a decisive point might be a key satellite uplink station or a specific communications hub or even the general in charge of it. You hit the decisive points to make the center of gravity crumble. The real art is picking the right sequence of those points to get you to your end state in the most efficient way.
And commanders connect all these points and objectives using lines of operations and lines of effort. This is what gives the whole campaign its shape, right?
Right. A line of operations is pretty straightforward. It links your base to a series of physical objectives in time and space. Think of it like a path on a map. Seize this city, then this bridge, then that airfield.
And a line of effort is more abstract.
Exactly. It links goal-oriented objectives, non-physical things, like restoring public services or undermining an insurgency's influence in a certain area, or building international support.
So you might have a line of operations for your military forces and a line of effort for your diplomatic and economic teams, all working toward the same end state.
In modern complex campaigns, you almost always have both. The trick is making sure they support each other.
Now, as all this is happening, the commander is trying to control the speed of it all. This gets to the concepts of tempo and culmination.
Tempo is all about the rhythm and speed of your operations compared to the enemy's. The goal is always to maintain a higher tempo. You want to move faster, decide faster, and act faster.
So you're always one step ahead.
You force them into a reactive cycle. They're always responding to you, never able to get their own plans going. You seize and hold the initiative.
But you can't keep that pace up forever. Every force has its limits. That's culmination, right?
Culmination is a harsh reality of war. The doctrine defines it as the point where your force just can't continue its current operation anymore. An attacking force runs out of gas, literally and figuratively. They've pushed so far that they've exhausted their supplies, their people are worn out, and their combat power has dropped.
And at that point, they have to stop and transition to defense, or they risk being destroyed.
Precisely. And that culminating point is often a sudden, dramatic shift in power. If the enemy attacks you right when you've culminated, you're in deep trouble. So commanders have to plan for this. Logistics, sustainment, troop fatigue, all of that determines how far you can go before you hit that wall.
Ignoring it is how a successful attack turns into a disaster.
It's one of the most common ways historically.
Okay, finally, let's just place all of this in the bigger picture of the levels of warfare. Strategic, operational, and tactical.
Right. So the strategic level is the highest. That's about national goals, grand strategy, what the country wants to achieve. It's driven by political leaders.
Then at the bottom, you have the tactical level.
That's the world of battles and engagements, the actual fighting, usually handled by units like corps and divisions. Their job is to win the fight that's right in front of them.
And operational art lives in the middle, at the operational level.
Yes. That's the level of campaigns and major operations. The job of the operational commander is to link all those tactical actions, all those small victories on the battlefield, to the larger strategic goals. They are the conductor making sure the whole orchestra is playing the same song.
Because a brilliant tactical victory that doesn't actually help you win the war is ultimately meaningless.
It's worse than meaningless. It's a waste of lives and resources. The connection between all three levels is absolutely vital.
So we've covered the art, the visualization, the strategy. Now let's get into the science, the actual structured process that turns that art into action. This is called the operations process.
The operations process is really the command and control framework. It's made up of four major activities: planning, preparing, executing, and continuously assessing.
And the key word there is continuously. These aren't separate steps in a line.
Not at all. They overlap constantly. As a commander, you're always assessing the situation, which informs your current execution, while you're also preparing for the next phase and planning for the operation after that. It's a constant cycle.
Okay, let's start with the science of planning. I know there are two main ways organizations approach this, depending on the problem.
That's right. The classic, highly analytical method is the military decision-making process, or MDMP. This is what you use when you have a pretty well-defined problem. It's an iterative, very rigorous process to understand the situation, develop different courses of action, compare them, and produce the optimal plan.
It's methodical. It's designed to find the best possible solution.
It is, but it takes time, and it assumes you understand the problem you're trying to solve.
But what about those messy modern conflicts where you don't even know what the real problem is, where the end state is fuzzy and the situation is super complex?
For that, commanders turn to the Army Design Methodology, or ADM. You use this when the problem itself is hard to define. Instead of jumping to a solution, ADM is all about framing the operational environment.
So understanding all the different factors at play, the culture, the politics, the economics.
Exactly. It's about framing the problem first. You have to understand the underlying tensions and dynamics before you can even begin to think about a solution.
So to put it simply, the military decision-making process solves a known problem, and the Army design methodology helps you figure out what the problem actually is.
That's a perfect summary. The output of the design methodology is that broad operational approach we talked about. And that approach then guides the staff as they use the more detailed decision-making process to build the actual plan.
Okay, so the plan is set. The force then moves into the preparation phase. This feels like a phase that could easily be overlooked, but it's critical.
It's often the difference between success and failure. Preparation is all the stuff you do to improve your ability to execute. Things like back briefs, where a subordinate explains the plan back to the commander to make sure they really understand it.
And rehearsal.
Extensive rehearsals, practicing complex actions over and over again until they're second nature. And of course, detailed inspections of people and equipment. Preparation is about hunting down and eliminating as much friction as you can before you make contact with the enemy.
This also seems like a very vulnerable time for a force.
Extremely vulnerable. You're often moving, concentrating your troops, getting into position. You're a big target. So this phase requires intensive security operations to protect the force while it gets ready.
And then finally, we get to execution, the moment of truth. And this is where that famous saying comes in: no plan survives contact with the enemy.
It's absolute dogma. The plan is just a starting point. A commander has to instill in everyone that we are fighting the enemy, not the plan. The moment the situation changes, the plan has to change.
So the focus and execution is on what?
It's all about seizing and holding the initiative, building momentum, and, most importantly, exploiting success.
And that success might look nothing like what you planned for.
It often doesn't. And when it happens, a commander has to assess it instantly. Does this unexpected success open up a new opportunity? Can we speed up our timeline? Should we shift immediately to the next phase of the operation?
And the ability to do that, to exploit a sudden breakthrough, depends almost entirely on logistics.
100%. You can't exploit success if you can't get fuel, ammo, and food to the forces that are advancing. Sustainment is what gives you operational reach.
So during the chaos of execution, that slow, methodical planning process is obviously useless. How do commanders make these critical, on-the-fly decisions?
They switch to a different tool, the Rapid Decision-Making and Synchronization Process, or RDSP. This is where the art and science really meet.
Because you're prioritizing speed over perfection.
Exactly. You're consciously trading the time it takes to find the optimal solution for the speed to get a viable solution out the door right now. It relies heavily on the commander's intuition, experience, and judgment.
And the trust they have in their staff.
Incredible trust. Because you're all making huge decisions based on incomplete information. And that's also why you don't wait until execution to think about what comes next. You plan for sequels.
The operations that come after this one.
Right. During the initial planning, you have to think through all the possible outcomes. What do we do if we succeed? What if it's a stalemate? What if we're defeated? You develop sequel plans for all of those possibilities.
So when one of them happens, you're not starting from scratch.
You're not trying to invent a new plan under fire. You just pull the appropriate sequel off the shelf, adjust it, and execute. It dramatically reduces the cognitive load during a crisis.
So all of these processes, the art, the science, none of it matters without the human at the center of it. Mission Command is fundamentally a leadership philosophy.
It is. And it demands two huge things from a commander. First, they have to be willing to delegate authority.
Which means giving up control.
It does. A commander cannot be the single point of failure where every decision has to be made. That's too slow. You have to empower your subordinates to make decisions at their level. That's what creates speed.
But that's terrifying for a lot of leaders because it means you have to accept risk. You're accepting the risk that your subordinate might make a mistake.
That is the psychological hurdle every great leader has to clear. Risk is inherent in everything we're talking about. The doctrine is very clear on this. If you wait for perfect intelligence or a risk-free plan, you will miss your opportunity every single time.
So inaction becomes the biggest risk of all.
Often, yes. Successful commanders understand that they have to take calculated risks to put the enemy on the horns of a dilemma.
Beyond these big philosophical points, the leadership doctrine talks a lot about something very personal: leader presence.
This is non-negotiable. You cannot lead effectively from a computer screen 200 miles away. A commander has to be physically present. They need to be out there, talking to people, assessing morale, and feeling the friction firsthand.
It shows you're willing to share the hardship and the danger.
It shows you're in it with them. That personal example builds the trust that the entire system depends on.
And right alongside presence is composure.
Absolutely. Self-control under fire. If the leader is panicking, the organization will panic and fall apart. Extreme displays of anger, fear, frustration, they just shatter a subordinate's confidence in your judgment.
The leader has to be the rock.
The steady hand. And the doctrine says you have to practice this. You practice composure in training, in stressful situations in garrison, so that when the real crisis hits, it's just second nature.
This all feeds into the need for effective communication and collaboration. I want to touch on the difference the doctrine makes between just coordinating and actually collaborating.
It's a huge difference. Coordination is, just making sure two of your units don't try to drive down the same road at the same time. It's deconfliction.
It's logistical.
Right. Collaboration is much deeper. It's about actively working together toward a common goal. It means sharing knowledge, building consensus, having candid conversations, even when you disagree.
And a key person in making that happen is the liaison officer.
Oh, a good liaison officer is worth their weight in gold. This is the person you send to another headquarters to be your eyes, ears, and voice. A trusted, competent liaison can cut through bureaucracy, clarify intent in real time, and solve problems before they even start. They are the human embodiment of shared understanding.
Okay, let's bring this into the 21st century. A huge challenge today is operating in degraded environments.
This is a massive concern. Adversaries know we rely on technology, so they're going to attack our networks, jam our communications, disrupt our satellites, use cyber attacks. We have to assume that our high-tech systems will fail.
We have to be prepared to operate in the dark, essentially.
We do, and the doctrinal answer to this very high-tech problem is, ironically, very low-tech.
It's Mission Command.
It's Mission Command. When the technology fails, all you have left are the human elements. You have shared understanding, you have mutual trust, and you have leaders with the judgment and the competence to act based on the commander's intent. That's it. That's the backup system.
There's that great historical example from the Battle of Midway that's often used here.
It's a perfect illustration. During the most critical moments of that battle, the American dive bomber pilots were completely out of radio range. They had no new orders.
They were on their own.
Completely. And they had to rely on their training, their understanding of the mission's overall objective, and their pure intuition to find the Japanese fleet and attack. They exercised disciplined initiative in the complete absence of orders, and they won a decisive strategic victory. It's the ultimate proof that technology can never replace the judgment of a well-trained leader.
To really bring all this doctrine to life, the trust, the presence, the intent, let's turn to our historical case study. This is General Matthew Ridgway taking command of the 8th Army in Korea in December of 1950. It was a moment of absolute crisis.
It was an existential crisis. The Chinese had intervened, a huge surprise, and the United Nations forces were in a full-blown chaotic retreat. The 8th Army's morale had completely collapsed.
It was a defeated army.
Operationally, yes.
Yeah.
Ridgway wrote about the gloomy foreboding he saw everywhere. The troops had lost their aggressiveness, their alertness, they had lost their will to fight, and the overall commander, General MacArthur, was seriously considering just evacuating the entire peninsula.
So Ridgway has to use the principles of mission command, not just to plan an attack, but to literally rebuild a broken organization's will to exist.
And his first actions are a masterclass in this. First, he goes to Tokyo to meet with MacArthur. He needs to establish high-level trust and get his mission order.
And what did MacArthur tell him?
He gave him complete confidence and, this is the crucial part, gave him permission to attack if he thought the situation warranted it. That is mission command from the very top. MacArthur didn't give him a list of tasks. He gave him a purpose and the freedom to act.
So Ridgway gets to Korea, and he immediately sees that the problem is about a lack of presence and shared understanding.
He does. He finds out the main 8th Army headquarters is located 200 miles behind the front lines.
200 miles?
I mean, can you imagine? It showed a complete detachment from the reality of the fighting. So he immediately moves his own command post forward, right up alongside one of his subordinate corps commanders.
Just that one move must have sent a powerful message.
A massive message.
Yeah.
It was a deliberate use of command presence. By being forward, he could see things for himself. He could talk to commanders. He could feel the cold. He could sense the fear. He was showing them, I'm here with you, sharing the danger.
And then came the moment that just shattered the old defensive culture and established his new commander's intent. It involved a staff officer, a Colonel Jeter.
Right. Ridgway is sitting in his first operational briefing, and Colonel Jeter, the I Corps operations officer, gets up and only presents withdrawal plans. He's talking about how they'll defend in successive positions, basically just planning the next retreat.
And Ridgway's response became legendary.
He just asks a simple, devastating question. Where were the Corps attack plans? And when Jeter admits that there are none, Ridgway immediately orders him relieved of command, on the spot.
Wow. That must have been like a lightning bolt in that headquarters.
It was a shockwave that went through the entire 8th Army. He used that moment to send an unmistakable message that was more powerful than any written order could ever be.
He was changing the entire mindset of the organization in one action.
Exactly. The mission was no longer retreat. The new intent was offense, attrition. He was telling every single person in that command that the game had changed and he expected initiative.
And once he'd reset the climate, he immediately made the operational changes to back it up.
He did. He saw that American units had gotten lazy, sticking to the roads, letting the enemy own the high ground. He reversed that. He ordered his units to seize the high ground first, then advance. A simple change that completely altered the tactical situation.
And he started using America's advantage, firepower.
He turned the fight into a war of attrition. He rearranged defensive positions so they could provide mutual support with overlapping fields of fire. He demanded constant communication and coordination between his units. His operational approach was brutally simple. Inflict maximum casualties on the Chinese with superior American firepower.
And in just a few days, he completely turned that army around.
He restored the fighting spirit of a defeated force by mastering the art of command, presence, clear intent, and decisive, disciplined leadership. He proved that even when friction seems overwhelming, the right kind of human leadership can reset the entire system.
We started this with Clausewitz's paradox that the simplest thing is difficult. And it seems like we've landed on the conclusion that effective command is exactly that, a difficult but necessary balance.
It's the balance between the analytic science of planning, all the processes, the logistics, the coordination, and the very personal, very human art of leading, trusting, and inspiring people.
And the sources we've looked at today, they all point to the same thing.
They do. They make it undeniably clear that the ultimate test of a commander isn't the brilliance of their plan or how advanced their technology is. It's their judgment.
Judgment that you can only get through experience and study.
Right. The judgment to see an opportunity where others see chaos, the courage to accept a calculated risk when the outcome is unclear, and the wisdom to trust your people. The human element of leadership is and always will be the central factor in any successful operation.
It's really a testament to the power of the individual leader. I'm reminded of that great quote from General George S. Patton, Jr. He said, Never tell people how to do things. Tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity.
The very essence of mission command.
So as you're listening to this, think about your own organization, your own team. Look at the challenges you're facing. What's the one crucial decision that you're holding on to too tightly that you should probably be delegating? Where can you apply these principles? Trust your team's competence and empower their initiative to achieve your intent, because that right there is the art of command.